feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review from TIFF 22, sort of. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, are you ready to go for a beer run?
A little too early for me to crack open a PBR, but I do have a wonderful pumpkin cream cold brew.
Non-alcoholic, I assume.
I don't think existed during the Vietnam War.
No, too contemporary for this film from a tour filmmaker, Peter Farrelly.
Yeah. We are reviewing the greatest beer run ever today, which will be released on is it getting a theatrical release or just going straight to Apple TV Plus?
Matt, that is a great question.
It's going straight to Apple TV Plus on September 30th, 2022. It stars Zac Efron, Russell Crowe. There's a cameo by Bill Murray.
All your favorites.
So we did see we didn't see the premiere, but we did see this at the Princess of Wales Theatre during the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival. Peter Farrelly coming off his, Best Picture win for
and People's Choice winner for TIFF.
Yeah, I was gonna get there, but thank you.
2018?
2018 for Green Book. So it kind of makes sense that his next movie would play the festival, right? Like, no matter the quality. Let's get into it. Eric, what the hell is the greatest beer run ever?
All right, so it's based on the true story of Chicky Donahue, a New Yorker who sometimes sounds like he's from Boston.
Oh my God, dude, we'll get into that.
Played by Zac Efron, who literally decides that he, like an impulse kind of thing after a few of his friends die in the line of duty over in Vietnam, decides to bring a bag of beers to the other guys in his neighborhood that are fighting the good fight. The family dynamic is your stereotypical sort of blue collar family with a sister who's kind of more anti-war and a bit of a protester, and there's a little bit of a clash there early on, but Chicky being Chicky and always having these ideas of wanting to do something grand and maybe getting in a little too over his head, makes the leap and decides to take one of the ships that he's working on. He's a mariner, is it called, or like a ship?
That's a good question.
He's a mechanic,
shipmate,
he's a mechanic for the boiler
ships.
room. Yeah, specifically. Yeah. So there is a ship that is going into Vietnam. He takes that ship and literally tries to make the greatest beer run ever, going from location to location, and in hopes of meeting up with those that he hasn't seen for a while. The movie is emotionally manipulative, derivative, and also just amateurish, to the point where you look at this movie and you think, where did the money go? Because it didn't go to the cinematography. It didn't go to the production design. It looks like a film that was shot on a back lot. It didn't go to Zac
Efron's dialect coach.
Sure didn't. There was I would be curious to see like who was working with Zac Efron and what that process was like. Even though I do like Zac Efron, I think he's really good in The Beach Bum, where he was a Creed loving Jorts fan. But yeah, there's something between.
I like him in Neighbors and stuff like that.
Yeah, too. He's very good in the Neighbors movies. And between this and Firestarter, though, he is not having a good year.
Oh right, I didn't even see Firestarter.
I mean, Firestarter is worse, I guess, but I mean, not by much. Yeah, none of this is inspirational or entertaining or thought-provoking in a way, and its message is very
I was gonna
muddled.
say, I'm like, what is its message? Because I feel like sometimes it's leaning very conservative, but then has like a liberal message at moments too, and you're just like, which side are you on here? And I know that's kind of the point of it with the conversations with his sister and stuff like that too. A little less drinking, a little more thinking, Eric. So yeah, I'm absolutely with you. This was painful and hard to watch at times, where it is not funny, it is not inspiring, It doesn't invoke any real emotion at all. To your point, the messaging is literal, literally muddy at times, but
As
I
muddy as
just
the movie looks.
that's yeah. And Zac Efron, doing his best, but at times sounds like he's from New York. At times sounds like he's from Boston. At times he sounds like Zac Efron, and like it just comes in and out and up and down throughout the whole movie. God bless Russell Crowe for getting a paycheck. I like Russell Crowe. I think he's fine in the movie. It doesn't have much to do.
Yeah, he plays a war photographer, and there's a line where it's like Zac Efron's like saying, "We can get out of here, we can escape." It's like, "No, I've got to be here because I'm
Yeah,
documenting a
I
crime
have to
scene," and
show.
it's just like,
Yeah.
come on,
And
you know.
when Eric mentioned emotionally manipulative, it had, oh God, there's one moment where it's just like, it's so bad.
Well, there's a
Like, it's just,
character. There's a
yeah,
character that Chicky meets early on that he nicknames Oklahoma,
yeah.
who is, I believe, like a kind of like a state officer or union
Hmm.
officer, and their friendship is kind of like your stereotypical, white guy befriending, somebody of,
Yeah,
the region, and it's so heavy-handed but also just kind of weirdly insensitive in terms of how that relationship unfolds, and then it tries to hit you in a moment of true, poignancy, but also tragedy, and it's just like you watch it and you're just like, come on, movie, really? You didn't earn
hmm
that. You didn't, like, it's just, it's insufferable at times, to the point where like you're just cringing. And again, going back to that kind of muddy messaging, it like the Zac Efron character, Chicky Donahue, is a guy that is very, pro government and believes everything that he's hearing on the news, but also doesn't like reporters in terms of covering sort of the negativity of the war and being critical of why America is in
yeah,
Vietnam, and questions that more than his own government, and or and Lyndon B. Johnson before Nixon came in. And so you have that kind of being like, oh, is he going to finally learn to like think for himself, and what have you. And it doesn't really go there, because it still kind of takes the stance that this guy,
pro army or
yeah, support the troops, pro army, which again, like there's nothing wrong with supporting
yeah,
the people in the war, that these guys were kids
I
going
absolutely agree with
over,
that. Yeah,
and the way that the soldiers came back, even, were poorly treated. I mean, Oliver Stone has made an entire career kind of exploring that aspect of being a Vietnam vet himself, and how America kind of turned its back on the soldiers dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and figuring out their lives after the Vietnam War. But there's just something about it where it's like, it almost seems like it wants to be like, okay, maybe at the end of it, he's more of a moderate, but it doesn't really have that pivotal turn or moment where he comes to the realization that I need to think for myself, other than that dumb line that you just mentioned, where it's like a little less drinking and a little more thinking. And it's just like, yeah, it's so
it sums up the
heavy
whole
handed,
movie, but like,
but it never makes it clear
yeah.
what this character's turning point is, or what his arc is as a person. And it's bad, Matt. It's bad.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We both put it at the very bottom of our TIFF rankings. As a follow up to a divisive movie that won Best Picture and the People's Choice. That similarly does some manipulative things, but feels a little bit more. Um, it doesn't feel as, I don't know if this felt
The
disingenuous or
performances, I
like,
think,
yeah,
are
I
better
think, yeah,
in Green Book, and that's why I think a lot of people really kind of fell for the stories, because Viggo
yeah,
Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. I mean,
are
not,
great.
again,
Yeah.
Zac Efron, Russell Crowe are good actors, but there was something there between those two guys. The chemistry was a little bit stronger, and the arc between them was there, even though again it is very
Mhm.
stereotypical and
Yeah,
on
and
the nose,
heavy-handed and
and
yeah,
very
yeah.
hammy at
Yeah.
points. The one thing I will say that I think is interesting and worth noting about those two movies, though, with the the post credit script that we get in like the
Oh
photos,
god, yeah.
there were no photos of the real life versions of the Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali character together, where
Right.
there are the photos of Chicky and his
His
buddies who
friends and
served
yeah.
in Vietnam. So
Yeah.
I guess, that maybe has some more kind of a legitimacy to it than what the Green Book script was going for, because that did come into question as well in terms
Right,
of
because
like
it was
that
written by,
relationship.
yeah, one
Nick
side of it,
Vallelongo,
right?
or yeah.
Yeah. Let's not even get into that. But
Yeah, really.
so it's just I don't really have much else to say about the movie other than like it makes sense that this is a streaming movie. I can't even suggest that you throw this on and Apple TV Plus. Like I don't want to completely like they've had a pretty good run with both their like series and some of the films that they've been putting out. And like I understand why you invest in this because he's coming off a Best Picture win. Like it, Green Book was pretty successful. Like
And an
I
adapted screenplay too, which is
yeah, like
wild.
so I know. So like I totally
Oh,
understand,
original,
but
pardon
like
me, original.
yeah,
Because
okay.
Spike Lee won that year for Black Klansman, which is just a bizarre juxtaposition.
But I don't know if I'm not into, Auteur era Peter Fairley. Like I'm just again, I thought Green Book did win me over in 2018 on first watch, and then as you thought about it and had those conversations with people, like you understood that that movie is, it is divisive for a reason. But I just don't this it is a trend too with these like, and I'm not saying that someone who stuck to dumb comedy for so long can't do something serious or something that's funny or a dramedy or but somewhere in the middle. But I don't know. I just like after this, I'm like, bro, just make your dumb comedies, man. Like I just, again, I can't say that loved everything, but I like Dumb and Dumber and Something About Mary and Me, Myself, and Irene, and even like I just feel like it feels weird that these movies are coming from this guy and I see that they're coming from this guy, especially in this movie. Um and it feels kind of I don't know, it just doesn't work for me at all.
Yeah, well, don't worry, Matt. His brother will have Champions coming up very
Oh
soon from
god, and
Focus
that even
Features, which
sounds
sounds like a nightmare. Sight unseen, but the description
just
does
it
sound.
just the description sounds icky even.
Yeah. So, we'll have that. But it is, I guess, again, like another topic of conversation that we have had before is that it's interesting to see these guys like Peter Farley and Adam McKay go from kind of, high concept, kind of below the line, blue collar comedy, you know, lowest common denominator stuff to, prestigious kind of high class awards baity material.
Yeah.
And it, I don't think Beer Run's going to go anywhere
No.
awards wise, but like with Green Book, but with even Adam McKay's stuff, where it's like
Yeah.
everything they touch, whether it's directing or producing, now seems to kind of, have that golden sort of statue, waiting on the horizon, or at least being nominated for things. Don't Look Up getting a Best Picture nomination, says a lot, and in terms of, McKay's sort of lasting influence with that transition that he made from going from Anchorman and Talladega Nights to The Big Short and Vice and Don't Look Up, and then with fairly with Green Book, and now trying to replicate that with this. There are other filmmakers that kind of play within that milieu of the dramedy, whether it be James L. Brooks or Alexander Payne, but those guys I think do it a lot better than Adam McKay and Peter Farley. But again, like to your point, I really do like There's Something About Mary and Dumb and Dumber. It's been a while since I've seen those movies, so I'm sure some of
Same,
them
but
don't hold up, but they are
oh,
of
some of
their
the humor
time.
definitely
Yeah,
doesn't. But
no,
yeah.
no. Um, but like even Stuck on You, which is a concept which now would never fly, or The
Right.
Ringer, which I think they were the Fairleys were executive producers on with Brian
Yep.
Cox and Johnny Knoxville. So
Which we brought up Champions, and then like it's just
yeah,
like them producing that, and then going on one of them to go on to do that. But even like I forgot they did Osmosis Jones and Shallow Hal and
well,
Fever
even Shallow
Pitch.
Hal. I mean, like that's a movie where, like, again, the concept, the conceit of it being,
Yeah.
a man sort of falling for someone's personality and looking beyond just their appearance, and like that, like
Hmm.
it a lot of their stuff does seem well meaning or well intended in terms of like they're trying to bring more diversity and representation for characters with disabilities and things like that, and having
Sure.
them being played by real people that have disabilities. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there's this weird kind of like, oh, are you mocking them, or are they
Yeah.
mocking the protagonists who seem to be the butt of the
Yeah.
joke? And
I
so like
agree.
that it's a gray zone with that stuff as well, where again, like, it shouldn't be off limits, but you need to be very clever and careful and considerate, the three C's, when it comes to portraying that stuff. And again, somebody that's an able-bodied filmmaker, might not be the right guy to tell that story, or be as compassionate as maybe some other people are. um yeah, so I don't know how that got from Beer Run to that, but it
Oh no,
is
I just
just,
think it's interesting talking about. I mean, we didn't have a lot to say about the movie because I just feel like it's very one note and it just
yeah,
kind
how
of
much did
plays.
Pabst Blue Ribbon make off of this film? Like, I'd be
And there's a shot
curious.
of Budweiser in the movie as well, but it's mostly a PBR. I don't know if like that must have been the actual beer that he brought. I'm assuming, but
Yeah.
this movie makes me go, I don't know if I want to drink PBR anymore
Don't
ever.
say that, Matt. Dennis Hopper will come back from the
Um,
grave and smack
I
you.
actually don't mind PBR. I think
It's
your
the ultimate
brother,
dad drink. Yeah, my brother
yeah,
Connor loves it.
Kyle and I would have some PBRs sometimes, I remember. Or maybe it was Connor back in the day too, but um it's a good cheap beer and like it's a classic American beer, I guess. But like
Miracle.
but I think that was an interesting, transition going from, these directors that, did make stupid comedies going into prestigious filmmaking, I think is interesting. And then
Yeah, will Dennis
um
Dugan take the same step?
who is next? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Who will be that person that goes from like the dumbest comedies you've ever seen in a good way, to just trying to make Oscar bait stuff, which is
I mean,
that's
even
the
Judd Apatow
pipeline.
a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah.
as much as like Judd Apatow kind of literally toes the line. Judd Apatow toe. Anyways, his
You're
stuff.
you're you're reaching there a
I'm
little
reaching
bit.
there a little bit, but
Just like
anyways,
we're reaching on this review to get it to almost 20 minutes.
yeah, but he's been an interesting one as well, where like he brought a lot of heart and humor and that kind of raunchiness even before directing, the 40-Year-Old Virgin, like producing things like Anchorman and The Cable
Yeah.
Guy and things like that. But from 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, and then especially Funny People, you saw that kind of like, oh well, you need comedy is a serious business. You should be taking comedy seriously, and treating them the way that you do any other genre of filmmaking. And even Nicholas Stoller talking about bros playing TIFF and having a comedy play the festival was a talking point in his introduction. So even that is kind of interesting, where it's like you need to balance kind of the humor and have more substance to it, and sometimes that substance can overpower something that is generally a good movie just as a comedy.
Yeah. Um, the other thing I think is weird is the beer on the poster looks more like a Budweiser can than it looks like a PBR can. So
Conspiracy theory.
I don't know. I'm gonna give the movie a 1. It was the worst movie I saw at the festival. Just a, I could I wanted to leave, and that was the only movie during the festival that I actually wanted to get up and leave. Cause like, during the fest, it's interesting because and maybe if we saw this earlier in the festival, we maybe would have been more forgiving, probably not by much, but like at that point we saw it at the latter half of the festival, and I think that's also telling that it premiered in the latter half than the first half. But I just I basically 20 to 30 minutes in, I was like, I don't want to be here. And then
You don't want a
My
beer
wife,
here?
yeah, I drank so much beer before this movie too to try to like, I was like, all right, greatest beer run ever. Let's get some beers in the Visa Infinite Lounge. Neva's convinced me to stay because she's like, you shouldn't leave your friend Eric, and I was like, Eric will be fine. We
I
can
would I
go.
would have completely understand, but thank you, Nevis. That was very considerate of you.
So we sat through it, and wasn't sure what to take from the movie. I did not laugh. I was confused by Zac Efron's performance. I was like, okay, Russell Crowe,
Confused by
good
the
for you.
messaging.
Yeah. So anyways, a 1 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I will also give it a 1 out of 5. In addition to a Heineken, fuck that shit, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Thank you all for listening or watching. We really do appreciate it. You can check out our other TIFF reviews, including movies like Pearl, The Whale, Glass Onion, The Fablemans, Bros, Brother, I Like Movies, Weird, The Al Yankovic Story, Banshees of Inisherin, Triangle of Sadness, Empire of Light. Tons of stuff up on the reviews channel for you guys from the festival, so go check those out, and on YouTube, as well as our TIFF wrap-up show, where we do talk about Beer Run, because we do our full ranking of our TIFF films, and spoilers, it's at the bottom of both of Eric's and I's list.
Congratulations, Roost, you're not the worst film of the festival.
Yeah, spoilers on the second worst. So go check that out. That's over on the Untitled Movie Podcast channel. It's episode 132. And as always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at untitledmoviepodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews, including a truncated episode of a TIFF wrap-up with Matt on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on all the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Do a little less drinking and a little more thinking.
I'm going to do a little more thinking and a little less drinking, Eric.